this is a highly complex environment where Bitcoin is serving different purposes to different people, and one that makes it attractive to a lot of folks.
But I guess what I'm saying is it may serve different purposes to different people. But if you told me that 90% of the people were in my mind, this is my own thesis. I think 80 to 90% of the folks who are buying this thing are buying it because it's a risk on, the train is leaving, or I think the train's leaving, and I want to get in on the action. And that there's another 10 or maybe 20%, maybe, who have this sort of inflation hedge idea that around their own exposure to their own currency.
Look,
but I don't think it's a 50-50 thing. I don't think it's a... You see what I'm saying?
Well, what you're calling out is just a societal trend, right? We've become a society of gamblers. If you think about, we have zero-day options. Now we're more than 50% of options trading. We have sports betting, right? We have meme coins trading like 1980s boiler room, penny stocks. This is all happening. And so, again, why is that occurring? The dollar has lost 25% of its purchasing power in 4 years. We have $1.1 trillion of credit card debt. We have 43 million Americans that have federal student debt. The average balance is $37,000. People have lost hope. They do not have hope. How are you supposed to live in a country where it is cheaper to rent than buy a home in 50 major metros? You don't have hope. And so what do?
You think this is a lottery ticket? This is a gamble?
I think that if you go and you buy a lottery ticket, it's 300 million to 1 odds. I think there's people right now saying, you know what, a meme coin has better odds than a lottery ticket.
Hey everybody, it's Eddie from Tokyo. This is your cryptocurrency update from Japan, and on CNBC this morning, Becky, Andrew, and Joe continued to have their own strong opinions about Bitcoin. With the highest weekly, monthly, and quarterly close, this orange asset will be discussed at length as we inch closer to the halving. Just look at this 2020 to 2023 risk versus return. This will show you that Bitcoin, if you spot that orange dot up in the top right, is in a class all its own. In this video, we're going to look at the top gainers. Also, Gensler receives a letter and chalks up another attaboy, Gary, for hurting investors. Also tracking the billions that came out of the Ripple escrow. Some people are angry at me for what Ripple has said. XDC is, getting a big commitment from an industry participant. And we have an insightful conversation with Charles Hoskinson jumping into an XRP space. All right, everybody, let's go. Just a little heads up, everyone. April 1st gets pretty crazy here in crypto. So be careful out there because your emotions are going to go something like, oh my gosh, no way. Oh, screaming with just fear. And then feeling quite sad, only to feel some relief and starting to laugh at yourself hysterically because you just got played on with an April Fool's joke. It's out there. There are some people, I'm sure, that think these airdrops coming from Ripple are real. They are not. Don't be fooled. Despite looking a bit red today, we are still in extreme greed, according to the index with a score of 82. Top gainers in the 100 by market cap. First up is Core. It is up 62% on the 24-hour. This is a layer 1 blockchain with EVM smart contracts. It's a DAO with an impressive 2.2 million followers on X. The interesting thing about this chain is that it's a hybrid between proof of work and proof of stake. It's considered a Bitcoin-aligned chain, and it's attracting lots of developers. Here is a big event that they had in India just a few days ago. Jupiter taking the second spot, up 20%, trading at $1.77. This market cap rank at 54 is quite interesting. I have it in my portfolio now. 10 billion max supply, and it is part of a very advanced swap aggregation engine delivering liquidity in the Solana ecosystem. And it's rapidly expanding its DeFi offerings. In just a couple of months, it's been around. $2 billion market cap. There are so many popular tokens now in the Solana chain. I'm not going to miss the momentum on this one. In that third position is Bitcoin Cash, up 11% on the 24-hour. Yeah, I was quite surprised to see that it had reached this $600 range. I had not been paying attention. It is something I still own, as I went through the Bitcoin hard fork and was given a lot of Bitcoin Cash, which I've just let sit there. The Republicans on the House Financial Services Committee, they're barking again about how they're going to hold Gary Gensler accountable. You know, the letter is, yes, it has a lot of signatures and it does talk a good game, but I don't see holding Gensler accountable for anything coming to a reality. They're asking him to finally address the regulatory clarifications of Ethereum, and especially since Prometheum has made an announcement that they are going to put this asset into their so-called securities exchange. They're asking for his attention to these critical matters and look forward to a response no later than April 9th. How much you want to bet there is no response? And you can chalk up another mistake made by Gensler. Hong Kong is aiming for its in-kind creation of a Bitcoin ETF, unlike the United States, which has just a transaction in cash only. And it was BlackRock back in January that warned the SEC that its lack of in-kind orders for Bitcoin ETF shares could hurt investors. The brokerage firms in Hong Kong that cater to American clients for international trading are going to benefit with this advantage. And it's kind of an unfair advantage, really. There are 3 reasons why the in-kind ETF would be a number one choice. An ETF return is given out in Bitcoin directly. Well, that saves a lot of money both for the ETF and the investors. There's also a tax efficiency when you sell Bitcoin and make a profit. You usually have to pay taxes on that profit, but with an in-kind redemption, the ETF can swap Bitcoin to other assets, which technically selling them potentially avoids triggering taxes. And the third advantage is liquidity. With an in-kind redemption, the ETF can trade its Bitcoin directly for other assets, helping to keep the market stable and avoid big swings in the Bitcoin price. One of the tranches that came out of the Ripple escrow today, here we see the 500 million is still sitting there. And so far, we don't see any of it being returned back into escrow, but we'll definitely keep watch on the movement. There were many people who were not happy with me that I brought out the fact of a Ripple submission to the SEC in regards to the ODL transactions being demand neutral. I didn't say this. This is what Ripple says. And they also go on to say that it does not impact the price of XRP. Now, Mikkel did a very good video, and he said that just the fact that XRP is used by Ripple as a solution, as a bridge currency, it could lead to better speculation by retail investors and institutional investors. I agree. Optics, if they see that this digital asset is being used by Ripple for their payment solution, that it could lean towards more speculation. I don't disagree on that at all, because as we've seen with meme coins, speculation can drive anything, whether it has utility or not. And I think it's good to point out the reminder that Panos had, where David had told everyone that Ripple was broadening their focus to real-world asset tokenization and multi-chains as payments were not getting the traction they had hoped for. And if you missed the post by Santiago Velez yesterday, with enough liquidity into enough currency pairs, it no longer makes sense to swap into and then out of the bridge asset. And instead, it starts making more sense creating a pool of reserves to make markets. This is how a reserve currency works, but it takes global network effects. So currency pair liquidity plus the network effect, and yet you may not need to swap in and out of a bridge asset. Check this out. I find it quite interesting that BitTrue is going to launch 16 new XDC base spot trading pairs. I think they know something. Something is up with XDC. Now something a little special. Dark Horse was able to get some of the conversation that Charles Hoskinson came in on for an XRP live X space. And the knowledge that he dropped is always fantastic. I'm so happy to see that he's jumping into these spaces. So there's 5 hours of this live recording that he wants to go through and edit. But we've got the first 20 minutes, which I think was some of the best. So I'm going to share that with you. And until next time, do take care. Sayonara for now. Bye-bye.
So there are generations of blockchains. The first generation was Bitcoin, and the point there was the ability to move value in a decentralized way amongst people who don't know or trust each other. Massive innovation, awesome. The problem is that Bitcoin is blind, deaf, and dumb. It has no programmability with it that's reasonable. So while you can move value around, all you can do is just teleport this thing called a Bitcoin. You can't issue your own assets. You can't do smart contracts. So the second generation was adding programmability, and that was kind of like when the JavaScript came to the web browser. And so the minute that happened, you went from these static websites to Facebook and Amazon and YouTube and great rich experiences that the Web 2 world had. So analogously, Ethereum brought the dApp world to us. Then the third generation was about adding scalability, interoperability, and governance to the world. And so basically you have the ability to keep up with your user growth and your transaction growth in some way and process lots of things in an affordable way. Interoperability meant that you could talk to many different systems, legacy or otherwise, and you can move value and users between them. And governance meant that you actually have something inside the system that allows the system to upgrade itself, kind of like Peter Suber's Nomic. So that's where Cardano is sitting. So he was asking about the fourth generation, like what happens after that? And I'd argue hybrid consensus and programmable privacy are two of the big bedrocks of a fourth generation cryptocurrency. So basically there, multi-consensus is saying, hang on a second here, no matter if you're proof of work or proof of stake or proof of whatever, that is always going to have trade-offs. And those trade-offs can involve subsidized power and hard to get hardware or expensive. They can involve that there's a plutocratic governance system where the rich have more say than the poor. Whatever your trade-off profile is, reasonable people can disagree. And I think it's not reasonable just to say the people you disagree with are evil or wrong. It's just you value things differently than them. But what if you combine multiple consensus algorithms together, like proof of work and proof of stake and other things, all in one layer one? Then you have a hybrid system where that system represents multiple constituencies, and those, if they're built in the right way, they get all of each other's strengths, but none of each other's weaknesses. And then you get an ecosystem, and you incentivize those resources accordingly. And then programmable privacy is the other side of it, where you basically have the ability to go from a public system to a private system and back, and you accommodate for things like identity. So I think Midnight is the first true fourth generation system because it has a multi-resource consensus system with Minotaur, and it also has this concept of programmable privacy where you have both a public and a private ledger, and these things can interoperate and work with each other. And it's cool because that is the moment where you can start bringing many different groups of people together, many different blockchains together, and also you can bring many legacy use cases like security tokens, royalties, supply chain, these things that you just can't really do very well in a standard blockchain setting together. Now, you'll notice something. In all these generations, you don't lose the prior generation. Like Ethereum is a generation 1 system. You still are decentralized. You can still teleport value around. And Cardano is a smart contract system and a decentralized system, but it just also has these scalability hooks and interoperability hooks, like with partner chains, and obviously the on-chain governance system. So Midnight, being a partner chain on Cardano, inherits all of the third generation characteristics of Cardano, but then it gets to parameterize even further. So that's really cool that you can actually have a third and a fourth generation. By the way, you can also upgrade systems from generation 1 or 2 to generation 3 or 4. So you can backport Minotaur, for example, into Cardano at some point, run Ouroboros Omega and these other things with it. That's probably a horizontal plan, 5-10 years. I can imagine happening. So what are the opportunities? Well, every time you go to a new generation, you get new capabilities, and those new capabilities translate to new businesses. So, for example, you could not run a business like Facebook on the original web, but you could when you had programmability and JavaScript and much more sophisticated browsers. And you could not run, a really complex thing like Uber, with 2004 technology. You needed like cell phones and mobile computing and all these things to have that be a sensible thing. So analogously, when you look at blockchain space, you couldn't really do it like a DEX or DeFi applications or asset-backed stablecoins or algorithmic stablecoins on Bitcoin. It's just not possible. But you could do that with Ethereum. And then you could do that at scale with technologies that live in the third generation. And you could do that interoperably across many chains. And you can do that with governance as well. And so it kind of solves that DAO problem of how to get rid of governance keys and allow these systems to be truly decentralized infrastructure without having a creator have to run them 24/7 and have control over all the aspects of it. And so analogously, when you look at the fourth generation, it's saying, okay, now you can do that, but you can do this now with programmable privacy. You can do this with many different resources, not just one, and different governance domains, not just one, like the stake of the system, for example, which has inherent flaws in it.
What do you think about ordinals and inscriptions and the ability to do BRC20s? Isn't that a way to do issued assets on top of Bitcoin now?
People have been trying to do this since color coins. We took the original color coins design and
Sure. Right.
Yeah, deep inspiration, and that's where the Cardano native asset standard came from. And people have been trying to add smart contracts to Bitcoin for a long time too. And that inspired extended UTXO and the Plutus for Cardano. So it doesn't surprise me. Everybody wants to tokenize things, and this is a capability Bitcoin's desired to have since 2011, and since overlay protocols like Mastercoin were created in 2013. So it doesn't surprise me that exists. It also doesn't surprise me that people like Max Kaiser and entities like Blockstream and others are viciously attacking these things and calling them scammers and criminals and trying to find ways to get rid of them, because that culture is actively hostile to innovation and to programmability. They do not want people to deviate from the baseline use cases of Bitcoin. And anytime people try to build on top of Bitcoin, and unless they're using some sort of trusted layer 2
but they're losing,
that has a wonky
right?
design.
Like, at the end of the day, they're losing. You can't stop inscriptions. They're forcing it. An Ocean pool is doing whatever they want, but they're 2% of the hash rate. At the end of the day, like, Bitcoin is open and decentralized, and people are building what they want on it. And
but doesn't mean it's economically efficient. You still have a 10-minute settlement time for a transaction to get one confirmation. You still have very low-level programmability, and you have to rely almost exclusively on layer 2s that are trusted and usually constrained to a multi-sig trust model to actually do things for you. This is the dirty secret of Bitcoin. If Bitcoin made some modest changes to Bitcoin script and how Bitcoin operates, it would be a very rich and vibrant ecosystem with many dApps and tons of assets on it. But the core developers have religiously prevented any of these things from working their way in. They've taken almost a multi-decade view on these types of things. And you can see the real economic consequences of that. You guys, all of the Ethereum founders myself included, we started with Bitcoin and we're trying to make Bitcoin better. Vitalik was a color coins guy. Amir Shetreat was the first person to create buymastercoin.com. All these guys, like Jeff Wiltshire, he was a Mastercoin developer. Everybody was trying to find ways to make Bitcoin better and more programmable, and they gave up and created Ethereum.
Wait. You don't think the Taproot upgrade with TapScript has given the ability to what we're seeing right now with inscriptions and people actually being able to tokenize things on Bitcoin?
You still have an hour finality. Now, hang on. You asked the question, so I'll answer it. You still have an hour finality. You still have extremely high transaction.
No, you don't have an hour finality. People don't need 6 confirmations to be able to move around their BRC20s. You need a confirmation.
So orphan blocks don't happen
more than a confirmation.
Orphan blocks don't happen in Bitcoin.
As you can see, Charles,
the next builder builds it the exact same way because of the fee incentive is the exact same as the last one. Virtually no transactions get orphaned.
Look, guys. Bitcoin is there's nothing wrong with it. It does what it's supposed to do, but it is not built for fast finality. It's not built for programmability. There have been numerous attempts, whether it be Taproot or SegWit or other things throughout the years, to add a little bit of programmability into Bitcoin script. But let's be frank here, you have to do hard forks to be able to change things, not soft forks. And so they found super clever hacks to be able to wire some trusted infrastructure on top of Bitcoin. And every time they do this, they say it's going to change everything and all the altcoin space is going to die. In 2014, when sidechains was proposed, they said Ethereum is going to be dead in a year because anything Ethereum does, it'll be a sidechain of Bitcoin. Then Lightning came out and they said everything that Lightning is going to do, it's going to kill everything else. Now we have BitVM. They say, now we have smart contracts on Bitcoin. It's going to kill everything. I hear it. I've heard it for fucking 12 years now. Being in the industry,
but killing everything is a strong.
Lady K, check your DM, please. Lady K.
Been successful over time. Like Lightning has grown. Lightning has gotten adoption.
99.9% of all value in Bitcoin is not on the Lightning network. It's a lie to say that Lightning is successful. It's just a lie. I know this because I built my own Lightning network. It's called Hydra. We're very familiar with the Bolt protocol.
There are 5,000 Bitcoin locked into the Lightning network in public view, right? We don't know what's behind the scenes with exchanges who have Lightning channels to each other to be able to move funds between exchanges very quickly, right? Because there are private, most of Strike's channels aren't.
So it's not public?
No. It doesn't have to be broadcast.
So 5,000 Bitcoin out of 21, out of a circulation, what are we at? Like 20 million, 19 million circulation? I don't even remember anymore.
19.5.
Okay, so basically almost 20 million Bitcoin and 5,000 are there. There's more Bitcoin that have been lost historically than Bitcoin in the Lightning Network. When Mike Saylor has more Bitcoin than... This is the thing. It's like, but it works so great, and then we have security flaws, and they have to be patched. Oh my God, do you remember the big Lightning issue that happened? It was about 7 months ago.
No, tell me. Who lost funds in it? What happened? Tell me about it.
Look, dude.
Okay. Although I absolutely love someone else trying to tell scams to let Bitcoin die, I do want to get to some of these hands.
No one lost any funds 6 months ago.
Wait, hold on, lady. So, Charles, if Bitcoin would not innovate in the future, like the next coming 5-10 years, will it have an issue at some point, or
we have watched over half of the market cap of Bitcoin leak out into the altcoin space? Bitcoin lost almost half of its market cap to the altcoin space. Had Bitcoin innovated, guys, there would be no Ethereum. There would be no DApp and DeFi ecosystem outside of Bitcoin. We'd all just be in Bitcoin land. And we'd all be building on Bitcoin. And all of our projects would be Bitcoin applications and Bitcoin issued assets.
People would have made blockchains anyway because you get to issue assets that allow
they'd have no network effect and they'd have no value.
No.
The whole reason. Let me just goddamn talk, man. I'm so thoroughly done with you Bitcoin.
I'm going to need you to raise your hand. We'll get back to this. Let's go to the John. Welcome.
But I'm so thoroughly done with these Bitcoin maxi guys, and they just lecture. And Bitcoin is perfect. It's done everything right. Everything's right. Every mistake we've made.
Who said it's perfect?
The Bitcoin maxis. Every fucking day, Team Orange. They say, even in the language, you have scam coin and altcoin and Bitcoin. just the way they present themselves, the way they talk about the rest of the industry, the way they talk about all the innovations of the industry. You ask the Bitcoin people, is proof of stake a legitimate consensus algorithm? 90% of them say, no, it is a scam. So that means that 95% of all the wealth that's outside of Bitcoin is by their account in a Ponzi scheme. That's just a fact, man. That's what we deal with every single day, whether it be Greg Maxwell or Adam Back, it be Jimmy Sung, it be Mike Saylor.
For 12 years, Charles.
For 12 years, I've been in this industry, and I've seen this every fucking day. And it's almost comical at this point. And then there's always some magic new MacGuffin that's coming out in Bitcoin land. And that magic MacGuffin makes every single thing we've ever done in the altcoin space irrelevant. And it's all going to die. Meanwhile, when you actually try to upgrade Bitcoin, I'll tell you what my lived experience was. You know, when they published the sidechains paper, we were really interested in it. We said, that's a pretty cool paper, but it doesn't have a mathematical primitive to be used. So there was this brilliant graduate student. His name was Dionysius Zindros. And when he was getting his PhD at University of Athens, his advisor was Agalos, who's our chief scientist. So Agalos said, hey, Dionysius, why don't we actually create something that kind of backfills what they were talking about? So he created this concept called NIPA-POWs, non-interactive proofs of proof of work. And what they rely on is that when you look at the structure of proof of work, it turns out that not all proof of work puzzles are created equally. So it could be the case that one puzzle is good enough to solve the block, but another one is significantly more rare. And you can find the ones that are significantly more rare that also solve your block, and you can use those as the basis to build a recursive proof. What this means is you can use this to kind of roll up the chain, and thus you can create light clients with full client security. Now, you're not changing Nakamoto proof of work. You're not changing the algorithm. You're just taking advantage of the fact that there are rare puzzles that come up from time to time, and you can construct a recursive proof with it. So we came up with this idea where, like, holy shit, this solves the sidechains problem. This allows you to have full wallets, light wallets with full node security. We wrote a paper called log space mining that showed how you could mine without having a full node using this type of a system. And it didn't require any modification to Bitcoin's consensus. All it required is Bitcoin to be semantically aware that these puzzles exist and take advantage of them. So write the BIP, go and talk to the people, you know, do the whole thing. 2016, the NIPA-POWs paper came out, 8 years ago. And there were follow-up works like Fly Client and these other things that use NIPA-POW as the basis. Where is it in the Bitcoin protocol? There's no downside. It doesn't change your security model, and you get all these amazing downstream advantages for it. And it's something you got for free as a consequence of your consensus engine. It's almost equivalent to like a farmer. You know, he harvests the corn in his field, and somebody comes by and says, can I take the corn stalks to make ethanol? He said, no, I just want to burn them instead. Yeah, but you've already harvested the field. I'll pay you money to take those corn. No, I want to burn the cornfield.
So Charles, what was the reason? What was the reason to reject that?
That's the craziest part. It's like, it's not a priority. It's not something we think about. Write a bit.
Wait, I don't understand, Charles. Were you relying on Core and Luke Dash Jr.? Like, at the end of the day, you could have put this in your own implementation of Bitcoin, and if people thought this was valuable,
you can put this in your own implementation. Fork the code.
No, not
fork the code.
Hold on one second.
Fork the code. That's what they say, and that's what they said with the big block. When they fired all the core developers over, right?
Required a hard fork. Luke runs knots and does certain things in knots different than core that he wants. That's not different than consensus protocol. So you just mentioned that what you said does not have to take a hard fork. So you could have launched your own implementation that was running
a small group of mentioning and not all I have to do to change Bitcoin. All I have to do to change Bitcoin.
Can I speak? Just like Luke does with knots.
Can you guys please mute this guy? Thank you. So I'd like to reply. Thank you. All I have to do to change Bitcoin, according to you, is create a brand new client or fork one of the existing clients with a change in it, and then redo the entire network effect of Bitcoin. Okay, that's great. That's basically what we did.
You're relying on Core as the top implementation.
When they control the code and they control what's legitimate Bitcoin, there's no change.
Who's they? Who's they?
Bitcoin. There are several different implementations that people run. So what? You're relying on Core. You could have ran your own implementation if it didn't require a hard fork.
It requires a soft fork. It requires a semantical awareness
submit your own
of a pattern.
So if you put your yes or no, if you put your own implementation out there and people agreed with you, they would have simply ran your version of the code.
It's not that simple, and you know it. And this is the lie that the Bitcoin people tell again and again. If a small group of people control the software stream and they control the predominant clients, it is damn near impossible to change the network effect of it. So yes, you can create your own client, and yes, you can tell people to migrate, and unless there's an overwhelming reason to do it, such as the Bitcoin inflation bug or something like that, they're just not going to change their preferences any more so than somebody who builds a competing Google. Human network effects at scale are hard to change.
Technology that you created and they thought that was better, they would migrate. The reason you're salty is because nobody agreed with it. You could have made your own implementation.
No, that's not true. NEPA files are now used in multiple proof of work systems like Ergo and other such systems. It's just it's impossible to actually get it in anything into Bitcoin Core. It's the same for extended UTXO. It's the same for anything.
Implementation. If people agree with you, you don't need Core. Why are you relying on Core?
Okay, but you don't. You're arguing a fallacy. You're saying you have to get people to agree with you. So I have no economic incentive to change Bitcoin. I have to go spend billions of dollars.
Why do you need an incentive?
Because I have to spend billions of dollars to create a network effect to change hearts and minds.
You have to create the token.
Can I finish? Can I finish? Are you just going to interrupt me every time I answer your goddamn question?
Relax.
Yeah, Scams, please let him finish his thoughts.
It's just like I'm getting steamrolled here, guys. Yeah, I want to answer the question.
You know what? Actually, I think we should just move on because Scams has a unique ability to keep talking about Bitcoin regardless of whether, what you're saying makes sense.
Bitcoin's old technology.
It's network effect, guys. If you have to spend millions to billions of dollars to get people to adopt new software, and at the end of the day, you get paid nothing to do that, no one's going to do it. That's just how it works.
You're against
the only people that control open source, the only people that control open source software are the people who control the core projects behind it. And anybody who's downstream of it in the crypto land just has to accept it. This is the core umbrage that we've always had with projects like Bitcoin, and why on-chain governance is so important, because the token holders can actually vote.
Let him finish. I'm
going to drop, guys, if he keeps interrupting me. Okay. I'm sorry. I can't have a conversation if he keeps interrupting me.
We're going to move on.